Today, we're going to do death. I thought about that this morning. I said, what are we going to do today? We're going to do death.
We're going to conquer death.
Well, I don't know about conquering it, but we are going to talk about one of the most important dragons, and that is the death dragon. And the death dragon is always with us. It tends to not really rear its head until midlife. Here's what the death dragon looks like.
It's scary. Scary.
And the death dragon tends to rear its head midlife, when it's really the seed of midlife crisis, where you have a parent that dies, or an aunt or an uncle, or your friends have parents die, and you begin to go, is this all there is? And you get divorced, and you get a Corvette, and 6 months later you sell the Corvette because it's got terrible suspension. And
now you got all these Corvette lovers that are going to be like DMing you and mad at you.
I'm just telling you, what I've seen as a psychiatrist, 40 years now, is I've seen midlife crisis over and over and over again.
And unfortunately, many people end up visiting their kids on the weekend because of it.
That's true.
Yeah.
But sometimes the death dragon starts earlier if you're faced with an illness.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I brought her here. Her death dragon started really early. She was 4 years old. Her uncle was murdered in a drug deal gone wrong. She talks about it in her new book, The Relentless Courage of a Scared Child.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understood what it was. I was pretty confused. I remember everyone saying that he went to go be with Jesus, and I'm like, why would he go? Why would he leave to go be with some dude he doesn't know, like some guy he doesn't know? And then I remember seeing pictures of Jesus with a beard. My uncle like had this big bushy beard, and I'm like, well, maybe it's because he has a beard like him. Like I remember weird thoughts. Like I didn't really know what it meant. It was I just knew everybody was crying and screaming, and yeah.
And then sometimes the death dragon comes when you get sick.
Mm-hmm. Like me. That's when it really came. Because up until then, like in your 20s and your teens, you tend to think you're invincible. Like I thought I was invincible. So in my 20s, I thought I kind of had the world by the tail. Things were finally going my way, I thought. And then bam, I was told I had cancer. And it was weird. And even though it was a quote unquote slow growing cancer, it had metastasized and kept coming back. And that's when it really hit me.
Yeah, it really stopped your life
at
that time, and was part of what drove a pretty severe depression.
Yeah.
The death dragon is what causes us to fear aging. Mm-hmm. And to get really unhappy as we age, losing youth, fearing a life without meaning. Or for you, it also really reared its head when you had a baby.
Oh, that's different though. The whole mama bear thing, you mean?
Yeah, it's like, well, she's not going to do okay without
me. Yeah. It's a couple things happened. That was the first time I ever instantaneously realized I would kill or die or something. like I was like, you rip somebody's face off in an instant. So that's a death dragon, I suppose, in a different way. But yeah, there's this feeling like I can't do my normal things because what if something happens to me? I have to be way more careful.
Yeah. So what triggers the death dragon? Well, COVID-19 triggered the death dragon. I mean, we know far too many people who died, who've lost loved ones.
9/11.
When
so many kids.
9/11, because they saw death over and over and over again. When you see your mortality, mm-hmm. such as a near miss accident, an illness, or when someone you care about dies. And teenagers are experiencing this earlier than ever before, even before the pandemic, because the incidence of teenage suicide has gone way up.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a significant problem. And so, how does the death dragon cause you to react? Well, fear of dying. And I've seen a lot of people who were afraid of it. Afraid really of, yes, what might happen or not happen after they died, but the process of dying. And I always go back to C.S. Lewis, who wrote, we have a big advantage over our ancestors, anesthetics. So fear of dying, death preoccupies your thoughts, or you just have this pervading sense of doom, or you have panic attacks for little or no reason. So somebody is posting, I don't look well. I don't know. I think I look pretty well. Don't you think I look well?
Might be the lighting. We both look a little pale.
So how do you tame the death dragon?
How do you tame the death dragon?
So this is really important. When I was in college, I took a class on death and dying. And when I was 20 something, I wrote my own funeral. And and from that moment, I have lived with the end in mind. And a lot of successful people will say, you should always start with the end in mind. If you're going to create a business, what's your exit strategy?
Right, reverse engineer.
And so I've reverse engineered my life, so you know it's going to happen. You just have to, if you live like you're going to die, you actually live more in the present. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, the famous psychiatrist who wrote a lot about death and dying, she said, it is the denial of death that is partially responsible for people living empty, purposeless lives. Because when you think you're going to live forever, you don't take care of the things you know you must do today.
Something there's interesting, especially during a time like now, but first responders or people who work in like ICU units during COVID, and I worked in a trauma unit, you see so much death that initially it's shocking. Initially it's like, it's very disconcerting. It's like, I had nightmares. I remember having nightmares. I guess that's sort of a PTSD reaction, I suppose.
It's a death dragon visiting you.
But you have nightmares and you have like, it's a weird reaction. I would have GI issues and headaches and all sorts of things. And over time, out of survival, I think, and every first responder I've ever talked to will say the same thing. They develop sort of this ability to cope. And in order to do that, you're not disconnected. It's not that you're cold, but you have to distance yourself a little bit. And I wonder if that's how it's a coping, a way of taming that death dragon, is that disconnecting slightly.
Well, yes, sometimes denial. I like
not denial.
To face it.
You can't deny it. We're there.
To know, okay, it happens to all of us. What am I going to do between here and there? And it also causes you to not take things too terribly seriously, in the fact that, you and I often ask ourselves, with whatever problem we're facing, does it have eternal value? And if it doesn't have eternal value, then why am I worried about it so much? And then what helped me, my dad died last year. And, I thought more about death this year than I have in a long time. And I was an infantry medic and was around, in the military, people who had died. I drove an ambulance, and I remember the first guy I picked up who was dead from a motorcycle accident. And I started to think about, so what's the upside of the death dragon? What can help you live a more meaningful, purposeful life? Plan for the future, work to create a legacy. I'll always think about that. Too often people don't think about that and leave their spouse or they leave their family with a mess. And I don't like that. I've just seen the level of stress that causes people. So I always have sort of a break the glass program where if something happens to me, here's the stuff. Because at some point, something's going to happen to me. And then in the book, all of this comes from Your Brain is Always Listening. You can go to yourbrainisалwayslistening.com. Back next Tuesday. February 9th, I'm going to do 90 minutes, and we're going to really go deep into the dragons and how to tame them. But if you go to, I put the link in the live chat. One of my favorite things is to start listing the good things about dying. Now, I know you always say I have Mickey and Minnie dancing in my head.
He has Mickey and Minnie in his head doing the waltz. Happiest place on earth.
But it helps, right? You're going to look for what's right, or you're going to look for what's wrong. And it all comes from the Disney movie Pollyanna, which Tana won't let me play anymore.
No more.
But it teaches you optimism, that you play the glad game, whatever situation you're in, what is there to be glad about? So I love that movie. And it's a positive psychology exercise. So in the book I write, well, you should write down what's good about dying. And I have 10 things. Well, so my faith leads me to believe there will be eternal life, and there's better things on the other side. And for me particularly, I look forward to seeing my grandfather, who I was named after, who is my best friend, and my father. There'll be no more people coughing on airplanes, especially in COVID-19. Not happy about that. There's no more traffic. I live near Los Angeles, so this is a big deal. No more internet trolls. I hate that. There'll be no more taxes, no more spam or junk mail. I won't have to shave anymore. I actually didn't shave today. No more divisive political campaigns. I'm just so over the people in Washington that just have such bad thinking habits on both sides. I mean, equal opportunity hater. I have to get my teeth cleaned next week. So I won't have to get my teeth cleaned anymore. No one putting sharp metal objects into my mouth, poking around. That scraping sound bothers me. And no more computer crashes. Like I did work for an hour and was working on a new writing piece, and the computer just froze. And no more of that. So as I go through my day, I'm looking for, well, what are the things I won't miss? With each of the dragons, we also have, what are the things you're not going to miss?
Worrying. I'm a disaster prepper planner, so worrying about things that are going to happen. I won't miss that. I won't miss work. Like I watch Life 360 constantly for the kids. Like when the kids are going to get home, I'm always worrying, that mama bear thing. So the constant worrying. Wrinkles. I won't miss wrinkles.
I'll miss your wrinkles.
I know you will.
For each of the dragons, we have affirmations. If you have this dragon, and you can tell which of the 13 dragons from the past you might have at knowyourdragons.com. We've already had thousands of people take it. What's interesting, this dragon is actually more common than I thought it is.
Oh, I'm sure. I would think everybody experiences it at one point or another.
So the affirmations, I will live a life that matters. I will live fully and fearlessly. I will be present today in all I do. That's what the Death Dragon helps you do. That's the upside. It's like, that's happening. What can I enjoy? What can I savor today? And it's usually you. Death teaches me that if something is meaningful, I do it. And if something is not meaningful, I don't do it.
And I think that's part of why we get better with that as we get older. Because as you get older, you get closer to the Death Dragon and you're like, this just isn't worth it. It's not worth my time.
and death is the next step
Mhm.
in eternal life. So when I was young, I worried about death. And then I read a book by Ray Moody, um, late 70s, called Life After Life. And it was about people who had near death experiences. And there was such a commonality to it. It just gave me a sense of peace.
That's weird. I remember my mom reading that book and reading parts of it. She was reading it to someone, and I still remember hearing
Yeah, I love that book.
that book.
Tomorrow, stay tuned. We're going to talk about the grief and lost dragons. And with COVID-19, they are just everywhere. We hope you have an awesome night. See you soon.